Hi guys, welcome to the Far Side of Normal podcast. My name is Stacy Farr, the creator and your host. This week's episode, I want to talk about something that I think affects a lot more people than we know, and it is near and dear to me because of my struggle with this very topic, and that is creativity versus conformity. To create or to conform. And what I mean by that is people that have creative bents, the arts, theater, storytelling, music making, even, versus traditional roles doctor, lawyer, nurse, engineer, creativity versus conformity. And I don't think a lot of times we realize that people that have that creative bent, I'll just speak from my experience, it is painful. It's like punishment to have to fit your square peg self in a round hole. And you can do it, but at what cost? Let's dive in. I know that many people have heard of that saying, the jack of all trades are a master of none. I was last year's old when I found out the rest of that quote. Because you always hear, oh, you're a jack of all trades and a master of none, with a negative connotation. That is not a good thing to be basically have your hand in this, have your hand in that, but never stay in one thing. It's not a good thing, or at least we were told, or thought, or believed. At the end of last year, I saw this TikTok video by this older white lady, and she talked about that quote, but she said the entire quote. I started crying because never had I ever heard the second half, one, but two, it was a good thing to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. Here's that quote. Jack of all trades, master of none, but oft times better than master of one. Never had I ever heard that it's better to be a jack of all trades than a master of one. We always had this negative connotation. Can you just stay at one thing and focus on that thing? Why do you keep flitting from A to B to C to D? Get somewhere and basically sit down. Hearing the second half of that quote, it brought tears to my eyes, and it makes me kind of emotional now, because when you've been told your whole life that you're not good enough because you don't stay in one lane, this is a game changer. How many people have not heard the second half of this quote and have heard just the negative connotation, not the good? Oftentimes better than master of one. Also, I've noticed over the years a lot of tension in marriages, between parents and children, even between employers and employees, when it comes to this idea of creative versus conform. Husbands and wives having arguments and disagreements over, I just need you to get a job and bring in income. It's not fair that you are trying to find yourself. Now we have a mortgage, we have children, we have a household. This isn't what I signed up for in marriage. This wasn't where you were or who you were when I married you. Fill in the blanks. From both sides, guys and women. Why can't you just pull your weight? From the parents and children aspect, parents wanting children to go to college and maybe follow in their footsteps. And the children go knowing that they hate it. They don't want to excel at something that is not for them, but not having the strength to either deny their parents or defend their willingness to go out into the world and try to figure it out. Nope. You're going from high school straight to college. You're going to stay on this path. I'm paying for your school, so you're going to do X, Y, Z. And it's caused a lot of heartache and grief on both sides. The person that has a traditional role doesn't understand the brain or mind or even the mechanics of the person that's creative. Well, why can't you just sit at a desk for 8 or 10 hours a day? Why can't you just XYZ? With the creative feeling unheard, undervalued, not appreciated, and like they don't contribute. How many times have I heard through the years, not just spoken to me, but several of my friends that are creatives, when are you going to get a real job? When are you going to quit that hobby? When are you going to be responsible? When are you going to grow up? When are you going to be an adult? When they're talking to a creative person. Creativity is seen as less valuable in our society, even though I would dare say we would crumble without it. When you think about lockdown and COVID, we ran, not walked, we ran to creative outlets. We were watching movies, we were binging shows, we were listening to music, we were creating. And I think it's interesting that we don't see value in it until it's made valuable. I want to break a couple of things down. I'm still thinking about that quote. For me personally, I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I'm mature. Let's just say I'm not in my 20s or 30s or a spring chicken, as they say. And I feel as if I can't afford to waste the rest of my life trying to fit into a mold that I wasn't created for. And what it has looked like for me after we were basically in a global timeout with COVID, full disclosure and confession, I've been having panic attacks thinking about going back to someone's job, punching a time clock, putting in 8 to 10 to 12 hours for somebody else's dream. It is punishment. And I don't think people understand how painful it is. It is basically telling Van Gogh to go be a banker. It is telling Mozart to do construction. It is punishment. And I've done it for a lot of years. I almost said how many years. I've done it for a long, long time. Many years. And what I've learned is that God is gracious and He's given me a lot of abilities so I can conform well, but it doesn't mean it doesn't cost me. It costs me sleepless nights. It costs me anxiety and panic attacks. It costs me soul crushing. It costs me losing joy and happiness. It causes me anguish, if I'm honest. And I know sometimes people are like, you're just being dramatic or you're being extra. I don't think it is that case. When people tell you how they feel, believe them. They've experienced it. They've lived with it long enough. They know how they're made and how hard it is to have to conform. I think another challenge that we don't take into consideration or think about is people that have traditional jobs have a pretty much linear path. You're going to be a doctor, bet. You go to school, you go to college, you go to medical school, you have an internship or a residency, PAL, you have a practice. Engineer, bet. Go to school, do this, do that. It's pretty much a linear or a straight path. When you're creative, it's all over the map. It's over here, it's over there. It's swinging from the rafters. It's swimming in the sea. It's all over the place. And that sometimes is frustrating too because you don't really have a straight path. There are some types of careers that have a more linear path than some other creative careers, but man, I'm trying to tell you, it's not for the faint of heart. And I think people see it as irresponsible. It's not irresponsibility. It's not conformity. And what I mean by that especially in America, we are all about producing. Your value is in what you can produce, what you can bring to the table, so to speak. Creativity sometimes takes a long time to show its value. It's not a widget or a sprocket or numbers that you can crunch every day. You may not see the fruition of something creative for years. Perfect example is I think of a couple of movies that took a decade or more to make. Avatar. How long did James Cameron think of that movie before it became fruition? But it was one of the highest grossing movies of all times. It's almost as if sometimes creativity has to be incubated, but when it's full fledged, man, it's worth the wait. In America, and I think in the world, but mainly I'm going to focus on America, we value jobs that are not creative, even though we need creativity. What do I mean by that? When you're talking to new people you meet, inevitably, oh, what do you do for a living? Oh, you're a doctor. Woo, you're a lawyer. Woo, you're a chemist. Woo. Oh, you're a writer. Oh, you're an artist. Oh, you're an art teacher. You're a musician. And they have that look like, oh, so you don't have a real job, right? We don't value creativity. And I think about when I was growing up in school. I'm going to talk about school budgets as an example. When schools have to tighten their budgets, the first thing they cut are the arts. No more music class, no more art class, no more theater, no more shop, no more home ec. Where's the outlets? But you'll keep sports because, again, producing. Children need the arts. Heck, I needed the arts. I remember growing up in home ec. Don't judge me. This is going to date me, but I'm still going to tell you about it. I remember growing up in home ec, and we literally learned how to bake and sew and balance a checkbook and maintain a house, but also learn about life skills. Remember that game called Life? It was basically a real life version of that. It was brilliant. To this day, I know how to sew buttons or fix stitches because of home ec and a little old lady at church. When you had the vacation Bible schools and you didn't feel like being bothered, so you'd go sit with her and she would teach you these things. Creativity. It makes me laugh because even though we say we value creativity, I don't think we really truly do. We're in another writer's strike. It's 2023. Every couple of years, why do writers have to go through this? You devour the content that they create. You pay actors bazillions of dollars. You pay producers trillions of dollars. Why can't you pay the people that create this content that you love? I don't think it's fair. And maybe it's just me. But yeah. Over the years, I've had many jobs. And like I said, God has given me the amazing ability to do a lot of things well. It doesn't mean I was made for them. I just know how to do them well to generate income. But every once in a while, I'll have a break. And by that, I mean I can't contain the creativity anymore and it has to come out. Several years ago, I created a web series that was a love letter to the longest running TV show in North America called Supernatural. Don't judge me. I love that show. I created a blog post that compared the lives of the two main characters, Sam and Dean Winchester, to the everyday struggles in life. I created a web series that was a love letter and a spinoff, just for fun because it wouldn't stay in anymore. When I created that web series, I funded it out of my own pocket. I did everything on my own. I found the actors, I did the locations, I did the script, I did the scenes, the whole family. I hired a videographer. It was a production. I was able to do 12 webisodes before COVID shut us down. This was because I had to create and I loved it. I would stay up till 3 or 4 in the morning, forget to eat, forget to sleep, It wasn't work. It was me figuring out puzzle pieces and moving parts. And it was glorious, you guys. Oh, I remember one time talking to a friend about it. She's like, "What do you love?" Supernatural. She said, "Stacy, your whole countenance changed. Your eyes lit up, your face lit up, you got animated because you love this." I was like, "Yes, it's not work." "What do you mean you were up at 3 and you forgot to eat?" Because I was so engrossed in creating this world. You guys, that was just something that I did because it wouldn't stay in. The videographer, sorry, at the time, he was like, "You should submit this to a film festival." I wasn't thinking about creating content for a film festival, but I said, okay, sure, why not? So I submitted a couple of different webisodes. We won 2 out of the 5 awards at the film festival. Just me being creative and having fun. Right at the beginning of COVID, they have this thing called GISHWHES, or GISH, and it stands for the greatest international scavenger hunt the world has ever seen. It's sort of related to Supernatural. One of the main actors created this, and it had been going on for many years. But I thought, let me jump in on this, 1, before the show ends, and 2, before Gish ends, and then 3, because I need to be distracted from this thing called COVID and this global timeout. So in 2020, right at the beginning of COVID, I jumped in. You had teams of like-minded people that you got assigned to or you chose. There is a list of several hundred items that you got to pick as a team, and then you accomplish those items and check them off by submitting a picture or a video of said item accomplished. For example, one of them was to draw blood from a stone. And you're thinking, let your creative license begin. A lot of people had stones with syringes and hospital beds, all this stuff. I decided that vampire up, fangs out, knife out, Rolling Stone Mick Jagger, blood from a stone. You're welcome. This went on for, I think it was 2 weeks. It was madness, but I thrived. First time doing it, again, just to say that I've done it before the show ends and Gish ends. The best and the brightest of all of those basically items that you check off are submitted in this gorgeous table book at the end of the competition. Guess who ended up in the table book? We're coming up with Cotton Candy Beehive. It was glorious. A sentence I never thought I would say out loud: cotton candy is really hot. Just so you know, on your head. Just gonna put that out there and leave that. Cotton candy is really hot when you have it on your head. All that to say, when I jump into creative mode, it's not work. It is where I thrive. It's where I come alive. It's where I breathe. I feel like a mermaid getting back in water. Anytime I let my creative juices flow, things happen. Here's what I've been working on lately: how to figure out, 1, what I'm supposed to be when I grow up, but 2, how to pivot and use these creative talents to generate a life without it being just one more thing that I have to do that's all about money. And I don't know how to do that yet. I'm still trying to figure that out. But I see several of my friends having the same struggle. A good friend of mine is an amazing artist. Because of where her station in life is at, she decided to go into teaching. It has not been well these last couple of years. We know the whole teaching crisis and the chaos and the madness and the ridiculousness of children and administration and then safety. She recently has developed health challenges because of her anxiety in teaching. Yes, she teaches art, but mostly it's the administration part, it's the children part, it's not the creative part that's stressing her out. She needs to be able to do more of that. Me and her have been talking about, or her and I have been figuring out how to pivot and live based on our creativity. We haven't come up with hard and fast yet, but we're trying to figure things out. A friend of mine who is brilliant as a editor and producer has to work a job where people don't value him, where his boss would rather throw him under the bus and steal his ideas than to showcase his talent and give him his flowers, so to speak. Recently, a friend of mine left the corporate world to follow her passions, and I am so proud of her because it is scary. It's scary enough as a single person, which I am. I can't imagine the challenge of doing that with children and a spouse and a mortgage and a car payment and dot, 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 dot. But she did it because it was killing her literally to stay in a corporate job. She's been able to pivot well and use her passion and her love and her creativity in a brilliant way. And she's basically holding down the fort and taking care of her whole family. That's brilliant. That's what I want for creative people. Not to feel like we're less than, not to feel like we are not adults, not to feel as if we're not serious about whatever, fill in the blanks. No, I want us to be proud of our creativity and not to try to harness it or contain it, but to let it out. The world needs creativity. I love music. Live music is unbelievable, and I've listened to so many genres. And I remember I watched several up and coming artists, and they talk about the challenge. You know, do you give up right before you get big? Do you keep pushing on? Do you wave the white flag? And the struggle when people are like, oh no, they're a new artist and they're an overnight sensation. And they always say that overnight took 20 years or 30 years or 10 years or whatever. And recently I saw a clip of, I think it was the CMT Awards, where the artist Jelly Roll won for Artist of the Year. I feel like I'm gonna go with that. Anyways, he walked up and in his acceptance speech, he said it took 34 years to make those however many feet from that stage to here. And he was grateful to God for that. And that is absolutely correct. People don't see the struggle, the late nights, the early mornings, the anxiety, the fear, the honestly sometimes the shame, the guilt, the feelings of inadequacy because you don't have a quote unquote real job. People make you feel less than in these roles that are so needed. Over these last couple of years, I've decided that I'm going to give it everything I've got and swing for the fences in every creative outlet that I can. The reason why storytelling appeals to me so much, you're literally creating a world from scratch. You're creating a world and characters and backstories and dialogue and scenes And I see all this in my head. I always laugh because I say that my brain is a monkey on a trampoline with springs on his feet. It never stops going. But the good thing about that is when I'm in creative mode, I can multitask with the best of them and it's not stress to me at all. And I get lost in time. During COVID and over these last couple of years, I've been able to create an additional 25 web series, or 25 episodes of my web series. I haven't been able to film because it's not in the budget, but I have 25 on roster. I've created 3 full-length movies and have 2 in my pocket that I'm marinating on. I came up with a book for a romance novel. Don't judge me. But all these things, and I can't not do it anymore. I may still have to work a traditional job. I call it, or compared to going back to Egypt. It's punishment, it's painful. But as an adult, you have to do what you have to do. And for me, that's put on my big girl pants and go back to things I hate to do because they pay the bills. And that's fine, but I will also make it a priority to have the opportunity and the time to be creative. I want people to recognize and to acknowledge that creativity is not being a slacker. It is not being responsible. It is not even being immature. It is your natural bent. It's just different. Kudos to the doctors and lawyers and engineers and fill in the blanks. But also kudos to the musicians and the movie makers and the actors and the storytellers. It would be a sad world in America, or in the world period, if we did not have creativity. Can you imagine what the world would look like without music, or without art, or without movies, or without books? I want a world where people are paid equally for their contribution to society. Doctors and lawyers are absolutely needed, but so are musicians and storytellers. And I think it's time for us to stop pretending like it's not, that it's a kid's thing or a childish thing to pursue creative endeavors. It's not. We may be different, but it doesn't mean we're less than. We're just different. I wish that I would have heard that quote decades ago. But now that I know the whole quote, oh, it's on. I remember a while ago, one of my best friends, he's a guy, and when a guy says this, you pay attention. It's weird, I know, but with me, my girlfriends can tell me one thing, but when a guy friend tells me that, I'm like, what? Because guys don't really, most guys, I'm not going to say all, don't really, anyways, whatever. And it was my birthday party, and it was a surprise, and he stood up and he shared. And he talked about, I remind him of the Walt Whitman poem, and that I take the road less traveled, and that has made all the difference in the world. And he thanked me for taking the road less traveled, but continuing to take it. I never had someone share that. That was a good thing. And it made me cry. Shout out to Ms. Johnson, my English teacher, for reminding me that it's okay that I could be a writer, that I could tell stories, that I can entertain people, that I can move people. I love that. I want us to think about creativity or conformity. And remember this quote: Jack of all trades, master of none, but oft times better than master of one. Let me know your experiences in the comments of trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. What have your challenges been? What have your setbacks been? What have your victories been? What have your encouragement's been. I want to know your experiences with this struggle. Thanks for listening and for staying on the far side of normal. Until next time, bye.